Today we're going to examine the 5 philosophical bases that underlie all Qigong practices. Those 5 philosophies are Daoist, Buddhist, Confucian, medical, and martial. All of these different philosophies are still going to be in service to the practice of Qigong. So what that means is Qigong is by definition cultivating your life energy. So no matter what style of Qigong you practice, there will be health and life enhancing benefits. It's just that each philosophy slants that in different ways. They have their primary focus, their primary goals and objectives. Now, whether you're looking to just begin your first Qigong practice, or you're wanting to add to an existing Qigong practice you may already have, if you have the understanding of where those 5 philosophies may be taking you, and they can take you to fairly significantly different places, you'll be able to select the Qigong practice that will best serve your particular needs, that will support you, that will help you accomplish the goals you're having a Qigong practice in order to try and accomplish. So that's one reason why it's important to understand some of the aspects we're going to be looking at today. It's also important to know that it's rare to find a Qigong that is exclusively, purely 100% one type of Qigong. That's because over the millennia there's been a lot of sharing of ideas and perspectives among all the different Qigong practices and styles. So it's common for you to find, for example, a Daoist Qigong that may have some Buddhist influence in it, or a medical Qigong or a martial Qigong that may have some Daoist influence in it. So although every Qigong is going to have primarily one philosophical basis, there's some blending that you're likely going to find, and that might be helpful for you to know. So now let's take a look at those 5 philosophical bases in some detail. Let's begin with a brief description of Daoist attributes and objectives. Daoists are primarily concerned with harmonizing the human being with the natural world, with its rhythms, its cycles, and its energies. So Daoist Qigongs are primarily focused on accomplishing that particular goal. The belief is that by harmonizing the person with the natural world, there'll be greater health and longevity, increase in energy, increase in overall well-being, because a person will be living a more natural life, will be accessing and incorporating the energies of the natural world. You might be familiar with 5-element theory, which is one of the oldest concepts in all of Taoism. 5-element Qigongs help a person tap into the energies of the 5 seasons as they're understood by this particular branch of Chinese philosophy. And those 5 seasons include spring and summer. There's also late summer, which is the 5th season in the 5-element scheme of things, and then fall and winter. Now, each of those seasons does have an energetic quality associated with it. Each of the 5 elements, which would be wood for springtime, earth for summer, fire for late summer, metal for fall, and water for winter, has a particular organ correspondence as well, and each of the organs have particular tissue correspondences. So one of the ways that 5-element Qigongs help build health is by, first of all, aligning a person to the energies of the season, and the energies of those particular seasons will benefit and strengthen the health of particular organ systems and the particular tissues that are associated with those organ systems. So, for example, in the springtime, wood element time, the organs associated with wood are liver and gallbladder. Liver and gallbladder are a yin-yang organ pair. So if someone knows that they have a liver problem, it might be a really good idea to practice a wood element Qigong in the springtime. Now, like I said, there are also tissues, body tissues associated with those organs and those seasons. So in this case, in springtime, the liver and gallbladder association includes the body tissue of tendons and ligaments. So if you have any type of tendon or ligamentous problem, that could be things like carpal tunnel syndrome, repetitive stress injuries, maybe you've injured tendons or ligaments. That's also a case where in a Taoist Qigong scheme of things, you would likely want to practice a wood element Qigong. Now, wood element Qigongs can be practiced any time of year. In fact, any of the 5 element Qigongs can be practiced at any time of the year. It's just that if you do practice those in the season that corresponds to that element, the energy of the earth itself is going to be supportive of your objective. The earth energy of wood will be ascendant or prominent, most prominent in the springtime, and that will most strongly affect your liver and gallbladder and your tendons and your ligaments. There are also sense organ correspondences to these elements and to these organs. So, for example, we're sticking with springtime, wood, liver, gallbladder. Your eyes are the sense organ that's associated with that particular element and organ system. So you may want, if you have eye problems, you might want to select a wood element Qigong to practice any time of the year, but for greatest benefit, you'd likely practice that during the springtime. So the 5 element scheme of things is one way that Taoist Qigongs will help a person harmonize with the energies of the natural world. Taoist Qigongs can also be practiced outside of a 5 element context in a more general way, which is still going to promote harmony with nature. It's still going to promote health and longevity, but certain Taoist Qigongs, for example, help you to tune into both terrestrial and celestial energies, also energies of things in your immediate environment, plants and trees and the ocean, the mountains. Historically, Taoist Qigongs were practiced primarily in the forest where there's abundant tree qi. The trees generate a lot of oxygen and a lot of qi on their own. Similarly, the ocean also is a big qi generator, and on the mountains you have very clear, clean air. You have more access to celestial qi because you're higher up on the surface of the earth. And there's also an abundance of negative ions in mountainous regions, and negative ions are one component of qi, so you're accessing the qi of the negative ions in mountainous regions. Although historically, of course, the Taoists didn't know anything about negative ions, but in contemporary settings, that's something we can take into account, and explains in part why historically Taoists like to practice in the mountains, by the ocean, and in the forests. So the 5 element approach and the practice of doing Qigong in very qi-rich environments like mountains, forest, and by the ocean are 2 ways in which Taoist Qigongs will help harmonize a person with the energies of the natural world. Next, let's look at medical Qigongs. As you might rightly infer from the name medical Qigongs are primarily concerned with healing diseases and restoring or enhancing overall health. Now, I put medical Qigong second here because I did want it to follow Taoist Qigongs, because this is an example of how you'll be able to see more clearly how one style of Qigong may have influences from another style of Qigong. Now, before we look at it specifically as a Qigong, let's look at what the Taoists did for Chinese herbal medicine. Because the Taoists were and are very involved with and concerned with health and longevity, historically they researched almost every plant, animal, and mineral substance that was available to them for its health promoting benefits and for combinations into elixirs that might prolong health and prolong life, I should say, because they are really concerned with longevity, even to the point of immortality in some periods of Chinese history. There is debate whether that immortality was actually meant physical immortality or a type of spiritual immortality, But there certainly were periods of time in Chinese history where a Chinese emperor's quest for immortality, physical immortality, would have caused that emperor to enlist the services of Daoists to help him find substances that would promote physical immortality. To the best of my knowledge, that was never discovered. There's nothing that will keep you alive forever. But that particular quest did yield a lot of information on very valuable medicinal uses for plants and minerals and animal products as well. And the Taoist research into all of those things strongly influenced all of Chinese herbal medicine. There are a number of Taoist formulas that are still widely used and widely practiced in Chinese herbal medicine. So in a Qigong context, the same sort of criteria exist. Taoist Qigongs were and are primarily concerned with promoting a healthy longevity, and so that dovetails nicely with medical Qigong's goals of curing disease and promoting health and healthy longevity also. The influence also went the other way. So there are medical Qigongs that inform some Taoist Qigongs because it's understood that in order to live a long life, longer than the average person, you really need to be healthy. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try to prolong the years of your life if you're going to be sick, if you're going to have a lot of debilitating degenerative changes, if you're going to be weak and infirm. So a lot of medical Qigongs helped Taoists achieve optimal health so they could then work on longevity. And that's still a good strategy today for anyone who's interested in a healthy longevity. It really needs to be understood that you need to be healthy first before you can really substantially work on extending your lifespan. So medical Qigongs, Taoist Qigongs work very well together in that regard. There are medical Qigongs that are designed specifically to treat particular organs. There are medical Qigongs that are designed to treat particular patterns of disharmony, what we might call diseases. The Chinese will look at as ways your body is out of balance, and it's a pattern of disharmony. There are also medical Qigongs that promote qi flow along acupuncture meridians, or the energy pathways that promote health in your body. Those meridians are the things that, say, an acupuncturist would insert needles into points along meridians to rebalance a person's energy and restore health that way. There are Qigongs that will do that same thing. So that you can sort of look at that as a needle-less type of acupuncture when you do a meridian-based Qigong. So these are all ways that people can do medical Qigong for the benefit of their own health. So, for example, you can learn how to do a Qigong if you know that your lungs are a little weak and you have breathing problems. You may be prone towards colds and that type of thing, so you know you have some lung weakness. You can learn a lung Qigong that will specifically target the health of your lungs so that over time you build up lung energy and you won't get short of breath so easily, or you won't get colds so easily. Similarly, if you know you have digestive disorders, you can learn Qigongs that will specifically benefit the health and strength of your stomach and your spleen. And in Chinese medicine, spleen is involved in digestion. So that would alleviate many types of digestive problems as well. So that's one type of medical Qigong you could do for yourself. There are medical Qigongs that actually target particular diseases. Those are a little more specialized. Those are things that you'd be less likely to be able to find and practice on yourself, but they do exist. For someone who already knows Chinese medicine in the sense that they're familiar with the meridian system, there are medical Qigongs where you can stimulate qi flow through the same meridians that you would access if you were getting an acupuncture treatment. So for someone who already knows the meridian system, that type of Qigong might be more approachable. For someone who's relatively new to Qigong, you might want to hold off on trying to do something like that because you'd actually have to learn exact meridian pathways. Whereas if you want to strengthen the health of your stomach or spleen or your lungs or your kidneys. There are Qigongs that are a lot more accessible that will let you do that. So these are all Qigongs, like I said, you can do for yourself. There's another branch of medical Qigong where a Qigong doctor will emit their own Qi in order to treat their patient. And that's also very similar to like an acupuncture treatment without needles. A Qigong doctor would be stimulating acupuncture points and meridian pathways and balance the energy among your organs just by using their Qi. So that's just for now, that's just for your information. That's something that it's not likely that you're going to be able to apply yourself, but you could seek out a Qigong doctor to treat you in that way. So that's a little bit about medical Qigong. I'd like to point out that if you want to begin a simple medical Qigong practice, you can find in my book, my second book, a number of Qigong exercises. 5 actually is the number, and each of those 5 Qigong practices targets one of the primary organs in your body that correspond to the 5 elements that we talked about also a little earlier. So the Qigongs in this book are medical Qigongs with Daoist influence, and it's a good place for you to start if you're interested in learning a medical Qigong. Next, let's look at Buddhist Qigongs. The short description is that Buddhist Qigongs are primarily concerned with cultivating a heart-centered compassion. Arguably, Buddhist Qigongs might be considered among the most spiritual, and I say arguably because Daoist Qigongs certainly have a spiritual component involved with them as well. The main difference, though, is that the Daoists are still primarily concerned with physical health and longevity, mainly because the Daoist belief is that there are only certain spiritual lessons that can be learned while we have a physical body. Our bodies are, in fact, our teachers from the Daoist perspective. Whereas in the Buddhist system, their concept more is that they want to use their Qigongs to cultivate those qualities that will serve to ennoble a human being, enhance human spirit. So in addition to compassion, you'd be looking to cultivate things along the lines of empathy and unconditional love, really trying to alleviate human suffering and the suffering of all life, not just human suffering, in any way you possibly can. So it's also important that you understand that when we talk about spirituality in this context, we're not talking about religious beliefs per se. So where Buddhism is truly a religion, a Buddhist Qigong doesn't have those religious connotations associated with it. Now, if you are a Buddhist, of course, you can use Buddhist Qigongs to enhance your Buddhist practice. But if you're a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or whatever religion you might be, you can do a Buddhist Qigong, you can do a Daoist Qigong, and get the health benefits, the energetic benefits, without at all compromising your religious beliefs. I think everyone will agree that most religious systems would also promote the cultivation of compassion and empathy and unconditional love. So it's just those qualities that are going to be more prominent when you're doing a Buddhist Qigong than when you're doing, say, just a purely Daoist or purely medical or martial Qigong or Confucian Qigong. Buddhist Qigongs are less concerned with physical health, longevity, those types of things, because they want to cultivate the values that move you towards spiritual awareness, enlightenment, for things that will still serve you once you leave this body. So the physical aspects of Buddhist Qigongs are still there. There's still some health benefits, but they're a little more, if we look at the 3 regulations, regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, the regulation of the body and the breath really are in service to regulation of the mind. And in some systems, the regulation of the mind implicitly involves the regulation of your emotions, the regulation of your intellect, and the regulation of your spirituality. In a Buddhist Qigong, the regulation of your mind focused towards spiritual cultivation is going to take the largest precedent in the practice. So if you're not so concerned with physical health and you are mostly concerned with spiritual cultivation, a Buddhist Qigong may work very well for you. The heart-centered aspect of Buddhist Qigongs also means that it's very useful for cultivating relational energy. So that means the way you relate to your family, your friends, your co-workers, the people you come in contact with, and the people of the world at large, even those you don't ever come in contact with. That's part of the compassion end of it, but it's also the relational energies, that are heart-centered. So if you are looking to expand or cultivate your emotional presence, to be able to maintain like an open-hearted equanimity with your dealings with everybody around you, that's another reason why you might find a Buddhist Qigong particularly valuable. And again, as in all of the other 5 philosophical bases, it's important to understand really what the focus of it is, so that if that's really right for you, you'll know you want to target this particular practice for yourself. Next, the short description of Confucian Qigongs is that they are primarily concerned with cultivating the intellect and then fostering ethics and codes of conduct. Historically, Confucian Qigongs were favored by the Chinese magistrates, lawyers, politicians, and educators, with the eye to having that intellectual cultivation serve the community, society at large. The concepts of filial piety and ancestor worship are also Confucian values. So in a more contemporary setting, and what might be of appeal to people in the Western world, is the intellectual cultivation aspect of Confucian Qigongs. Even in China, it was a favored practice among the intellectual workers, and would have that same value for intellectual workers in the contemporary Western world as well. There are 2 primary ways that Confucian Qigongs can be of benefit. One is that obviously if you're using your mind a lot to do the kind of work that you're doing, that requires a lot of energy. Your brain draws a lot of energy to help you accomplish that work. That energy is also qi if we look at it in a Qigong context. So in order for you to be able to most efficiently and clearly and directly accomplish your intellectual work, you want a lot of clear, clean qi available to your brain and your mind to be able to enable you to do that kind of work effectively and efficiently. So Confucian Qigongs will enable you to do that type of work more quickly and more efficiently, in part because Confucian Qigongs literally do increase your intelligence. Most Qigongs, in fact, will increase your intelligence, but Confucian Qigongs are designed specifically to do that. So that's one benefit. The second benefit is that you can use your mind a lot and not be an intellectual worker. For example, you might be someone who likes to read a lot of light popular fiction. And if you're doing that all the time, you're still engaging your mind, you're engaging your brain. And in the case of both the intellectual worker and the case of someone who just uses their mind a lot, it's common for that type of person to lead a more sedentary life too, so that you're not making your body as active, you're spending a lot of time sitting. So what needs to happen in that case is you need to be able to bring some of the energy that is gathered in your head and bring it back into your body. There is a phenomenon that the Chinese refer to as the brain eating the body. And what that means is when your brain makes huge energy demands on your system, it draws it from somewhere. And one of the places that it will draw that energy from is from all of the physical tissues in your body. So you'll be slowly diminishing life energy in all your organs and your muscles, and all your body tissues, which obviously you don't really want to have that happen. So one of the ways that you can compensate for that you can reverse that, is with Confucian Qigongs, you can learn how to bring that energy in your head back into your body. There are a lot of times throughout the day that you don't need that mental energy to do your work or to read or whatever it is that you're doing, but the energy is going to stay there because that's where it's used to being in your body. So Confucian Qigongs will clear that out, will bring that energy back into your body, and will help you be a little bit healthier. The physical aspects, because remember all Qigongs involve regulation of the body and the breath and the mind, will make you use your body at least a little bit every day, which will help minimize the detrimental effects of a sedentary lifestyle. Because Confucian Qigongs foster the values of ethics and social service, if you are a lawyer or a politician, or you work in any type of social service industry, or you're concerned about social justice, if that's part of your work or part of your passion, you may find that the values that are inculcated by practicing a Confucian Qigong to be particularly valuable for you. Finally, there are martial Qigongs. Some of you may already know that Taiji Chuan, or Tai Chi as you might say, is one style of martial Qigong, or at least it can be practiced as a martial style Qigong. Martial Qigongs are, as the name would imply, involved with cultivating physical strength, physical power, primarily for the application of martial purposes, sparring, physical competition. So even if you're not someone who's interested in martial competition or martial cultivation, you might find that martial arts styles of Qigong would be particularly useful to you if you are a high performance athlete, if you're a dancer, if you're a long distance runner. Martial arts styles Qigong tend to be more rigorous, more physically demanding. Some of you may be familiar with the word Gongfu or Kung Fu. There was a popular TV show a number of years back, Kung Fu. The gong in Gong Fu is the same gong as in Qigong. It's the same word, and it basically means cultivation or practice or exercise, something along those lines. The Fu in Gong Fu is power. So with Qigong, your practice, your gong, is to cultivate your life energy, which is Qi. In Gong Fu, your practice or gong is to cultivate power, which is used primarily for martial purposes, but power is a component of your Qi and can certainly be put to other types of uses, even when we're looking at physical power. Again, if athletics is a very obvious example of how you may put to use that Fu, or that power that you cultivate in Gong Fu. Even in martial Qigongs, you are working with the subtle energy of Qi, which is why it's still a Qigong and not purely an external hard martial art where Qi is not necessarily attended to. So in the internal martial arts of, say, Taiji, as I already mentioned, and Bagua, Xingyi, those practices do involve sensitizing yourself to the more subtle energies of Qi and applying that in martial contexts. Some of the other external or harder forms of martial arts don't really have the Qigong component in there. They're still valuable as fighting styles if that's your main focus, but martial arts styles Qigong will also provide a level of health benefit that other types of martial arts might not provide. Almost any martial arts training will help make your body stronger. If you're doing a martial arts style Qigong, you're not only making your body stronger, but you're making it healthier in other ways, because again, every Qigong practice does have a health aspect associated with it, has a health orientation. So this is a brief introduction to the 5 philosophical bases that underlie all Qigongs. Of course, each philosophy can be explored in much greater depth and detail than we've had the time to do here today. This should provide you, though, with a little extra understanding that can help support you in making your Qigong decisions as you select a practice that's going to work best for you. I hope you've enjoyed this vlog, and I look forward to seeing you again a little farther down the road.